So before I do this review of the Wes Audio Hyperion and Dion, I just want to take a second to kind of talk about the company Wes Audio, what their vision is, some tidbits, and kind of explain to you what you're getting when you buy a Wes Audio product. So, I bought both of these units a year ago, and I've used them endlessly for the last year, and this is my 1 year review, so I've had a lot of time to really work with these units. So Wes Audio is a company that's been around since 2010. They are I like to say, boutique manufacturer of outboard gear, analog gear, very, very top-notch stuff. I use the word boutique to describe things that are like bougie, expensive sounding, handmade, very niche and crafty, just very, very good top stuff, top shelf, top quality, great gear. And that's exactly what you're getting when you buy a Wes Audio product. Now, they have been around since 2010. They are from Poland. Everything is made with the utmost care, love, and affection. Each product feels, it works amazing. It feels amazing. It looks great. Everything is so cohesive and unison. Everything works so well together. It's a top-notch product from start to finish. I've had zero issues in the past year. I've had no problems with software connectivity, firmware upgrades. The hardware has just been so extensive to my workflow. On almost every mix I've used one of these units, and I've had no problems with them. I mean, that kind of reliability is something that's becoming more and more less as we go into the future. Things are made to break after just a few years, and I just using this as much as I have used it, I have no fear in my mind that over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, however many years I would have these units, there would be no issues with breakage or problems with it breaking or falling apart mid-session or during use. It's a really, really well-built unit, and it definitely reflects not just well-built, but well-sound. The sounds that come out of this thing, out of every Wes Audio unit that I have ever used, the sounds that come out are so full and fat and just amazing. I just can't say enough good about Wes Audio. And you'll hear in this demo how the lows are sculpted and really, really solid and chunky, and the highs are just so airy and beautiful. And I'll talk about the construction and everything. I mean, as I go through the demo, you'll see just how well a Wes Audio product reflects in its development, in its manufacturing, and in your hands as a studio owner buying a piece of gear. So now, the company itself, they've been doing this for, like I said, since 2010, but their vision is, vintage sound, modern design. And what they mean by that is that everything is analog. So you're getting a physical hardware unit, but you're getting a digital controller that is modern, that allows you to go ahead and access your physical hardware, your analog hardware, digitally in your computer, so that you can do things such as save your recall settings. So if you're working on a mix and you want to jump to a different mix, it's just automatically saves your recall settings, so you don't have to worry about writing stuff down or taking pictures of your settings that you've used. You can save presets. It's super awesome, that kind of conveniency. It's something you haven't really had if you've worked with analog your entire life. And once you get it, once you have that conveniency, it's almost impossible to live without it. And that's something that's happened to me. I'm just reflecting back to how I consistently go to the recall, how it's changed my workflow, how it's made my mixing and tracking processes super convenient, super easy, and it's almost lazy in a sense, where I've just oh man, I don't want to use that piece of gear because it doesn't have built-in recall. And I think, their vision for the future is definitely something that a lot of companies should start really including. I know my Neves have it, and I think it's super cool that Neve has adapted to it. And I just can't say enough about how this has really upped my game as a audio engineer, as a producer, and made my ease of access in and out of my DAW super convenient. And far as the Wes Audio line goes, they have a lot of everything for everybody. They offer a ton of products, and they have a lot of cool things with their recall, with their presets, with their Titan rack, which is their basically their power supply for the 500 series chassis that allows you to have full control of all your units. It's just they're such an awesome company with a great back catalog of products, and I cannot say enough good about them. This video is in no means sponsored or anything like that. I have less than 200 subs at the time of this video. I've bought these products out of my own money, and I will 100% back Wes Audio in terms of sound, in terms of quality, in terms of customer service. I haven't had any issues where I've really needed to contact them, but I've talked to their team via social media and stuff like that, and they're super awesome and responsive and friendly. So I'm not concerned in the slightest bit. I can't say enough. I'm going to shut up now and kind of jump to the review, but there's a lot to cover here. This feature set that these different devices offer are very deep. It's very, very in-depth and has a ton of stuff to cover. So I'm just going to stop talking now and kind of jump into a look at the front of the unit and talk about some of the features that this guy offers that are definitely a huge plus. So looking at the front, there is 10 buttons and 12 knobs. Each of the knobs are fully encoded. I'm not sure about every other unit. I know on the Wes Audio GCON, only 3 knobs are encoded, but all 12 knobs are encoded on this, which means that you can have all 12 knobs be fully automated within your DAW, which is a super cool thing to have, especially if you're going to take use of that automation feature. I don't personally use it. It's not something that I'm super crazy into. I'm very old school and like automating the old way, so I don't really use this, but I have messed with it. And if it's something that you're into and you're buying this for just even more ease and control within your DAW, it's cool to have all 12 buttons function with that feature. So the other thing that ties into that is that all 4 bands are fully bypassable, so you can come up with some crazy combinations and do some really interesting filtering on this unit. I've seen a lot of equalizers both below this price range and above it that don't have bypassable bands. They are locked in, so sure, you can try to do some stuff that makes it sort of seem like it's bypassable by not really boosting or cutting anything, but just removing the band altogether, I feel has a totally different creative approach, and I think that was a huge selling point for me. I think it's very cool to have a feature like that on an equalizer that you have in your possession. So it was definitely cool when I saw that was a possibility. Going into this, it also has Midside processing as well as stereo and dual mono. The Midside processing, again, is something I've not really messed around too much with, but I know a lot of guys who do, and I have not seen any other gear with that opportunity to have Midside processing included within the unit itself. So you can use dual mono, so 2 single individual EQs. They work separately and independently with these 2 buttons down on the bottom. So if you have guitar track, you can go ahead and hit the left side for that, and you'll have your full EQ settings for that track. And then say you have a bass guitar, you can go ahead and hit that right button, and it will go ahead and activate a new set of parameters strictly for that right side for that bass. So you'll have 2 separate units, which is very, very cool to have. Switch it over to stereo, and you can go ahead and use it on things like buses and your 2 bus, your overall track. You can master with it. It definitely it works really well for mastering. It actually has a bunch of mastering presets when you install the software. I don't know if it's marketed towards the mastering thing or if it's just a very just nice all-around EQ, but focusing on mastering. But I've had nothing but great experiences using this EQ in everything from production to mastering. So it's been a joy to use, and that Midside is really cool with that. It definitely gives you a new creative palette. I'll talk about that a little bit later and show how the Midside works and how it's different from dual mono and all that good stuff too. So let's take a look at the front of the unit and kind of go ahead and break down each one of these knobs. So starting in the top left, we have the output knob, just gain volume, giving you less or more of the EQ in the channel. Right here in the middle, we have the frequency selector for the high filter. This goes from 2 to 25 kilohertz. To the right, we have the dB volume for that, how much we're going to boost or cut. Down here, we have the high mid filter. This goes from 0.6 kilohertz all the way up to 8. To the left, we have the shape, so we can curve it from, more of a relaxed kind of hill to a very strict, almost notch filter, and surgically apply settings to really take away some of that nasty frequencies that might build up in a mix. This is a very, very precise selector. This guy has definitely, when you go right to the very right and you drill it all the way to that precision, it'll let you really get some mud and gunk and just airy, sizzly, bad frequency vibes that are going on in your mix. It'll definitely cut those out, and it'll do it in such a musical way where it's super precise, where you definitely feel it, but it's done in a way that feels right. It's such a nice bridge up and bridge down to where it's pulling out that frequency or boosting a frequency that can't really be heard with that precision, that it works really well. And that's for both bands. You have that for the high mid filter and the low mid filter. So there's your curve selector, your frequencies, and again your dB, your booster cut, and it's the same exact thing for the third band here. Again, the selector switch to choose how precise you want to be, if you want to go ahead and really sculpt in a tone or kind of let it be more really musical. The selector for the low mid filter is 0.2 to 2.5 kilohertz. Again, another boost cut dB volume knob for that band as well too. This bottom row is a little different. To the left, we have the high pass filter, and then in the middle, just like the high filter, we only have the selector of the frequency, which goes from 30 hertz all the way up to 350 hertz, and we have that volume knob there to boost or cut. Now, going to the high pass filter, it goes all the way from off to 350 hertz. There is a little LED right here on the side with the soft button. That soft button is a 6 or 12 dB octave slope. So if you have soft engage, it is 6 dB. If you have it off, it's 12 dB, and it is a very noticeable difference. It is very cool to use and utilize. I have messed around with it when I was trying to get rid of some like mud from a kick drum or like a 5 or 6 string bass, and it really makes a difference if you're dropping that 12 dB octave in there per that change. It's like such a dynamically strict slope that's being applied when it hits in, and you really notice that a high pass filter kicking into work, especially around the 100 to 120 range. You really start to notice how much is really getting cut out there. So looking at the bottom here buttons, we have the left, mid, and right side. These are the selectors. If, like I mentioned earlier, if you're using this in dual mono, if you hit the left side, you will activate the left side of the unit. If you hit the right side, you will activate the right side of the unit. This also applies to the mid-side processing as well. So it's more of a selector switch between which channel you're going to, and of course when you're in stereo, they are both activated. The single knobs control both left and right rather than having to individually select each and change the settings. We have an A and B switch, which is great for applying different settings and switching between the two to compare, or you have the bypass button for it, but if you wanted to, you could, A, B on and off mixes, but the bypass is right there in the middle, and that's what I use that for everybody does. Below that, we have the Duo, STR, and MS, which is dual mono, stereo, and midside processing buttons, and those are the buttons that allow you to change between dual mono, stereo, and midside processing. So if you wanted to go ahead and do dual mono, you could just hit Duo, which would switch it into dual mono mode, and then if you wanted to, say, work on the left guitar, we could do here, we could do right guitar here, if you wanted to apply different EQ for a blend, or if you wanted to do like a kick and a snare, something like that, that's how that would work. Stereo would obviously put it to stereo, and midside would do the same thing. Again, the left and right buttons controlling the left side and right side, mid side as well. Right in the middle there, it's going to give you that very unique, interesting mic position for your EQ, and it's going to definitely change the way that it comes out, and I'll show you that later in the video. You'll definitely see how cool that is. Below here to the left, we have their kind of standard. This is on most of, if not all of, the Wes Audio products. It is the TDH, which is the Total Harmonic Distortion. This is a saturation unit that is put into all their units that kind of give you a lot of grit, a lot of oomph, and that sort of dynamically warm tube warmth without having tubes. There's a medium and high. The medium, it can be often subtle where you don't even notice it, but it is definitely doing its thing. On sort of like cleaner tracks, acoustic guitars, really pretty and airy vocals, the medium you will notice a lot more, but the high will definitely show you what is going on with this unit, and you will definitely notice how it's being applied when you choose the high track. It's a lot of sizzle, a lot of saturation. It's really like you're running this thing through like a tube pre. There is no tubes in the unit. It is fully analog, no digital, but there is no tubes. It is going through a saturation circuit. On the bottom here, we have some LEDs and the micro USB port. The LEDs are HL1, HL2. That is just the connectivity of channel 1 and channel 2. If you're in dual mono and you're using the connection to just the left side, you'll have HL1 connected. If you're using the right side, you'll have HL2 connected. If you're in stereo, both will be lit up. And there's a small data switch, which just shows that the unit is connected and activated, that it is receiving a connection to your computer. And then lastly here we have a gain switch, which is just 5 dB and 15 dB, and it definitely works different than the Total Harmonic Distortion. It's not a saturation unit, it's just adding a bit of boost and oomph to the EQ itself. So that is really the front panel. Without further ado, I'm going to jump in and show you some sound samples and how this thing works. So for the installation, very, very straightforward, very simple. You're just going to go to wesaudio.com/download. Right here, there's going to be 2 installers, one for the Windows platform and one for the Mac OS platform. And you just go ahead and download that. They also have some other, promotional documentation and stuff like that. You just download it. It's a straightforward download, very small file. Download it, run it, extract it, like you would with any other plugin installer. There may be a prompt to upgrade the firmware. It's all as simple as plugging the USB cable into the front of the physical hardware itself and that little USB switch, and you're good to go. I mean, if you just follow the steps, it does everything for you. It's just clicking next a bunch of times. You shouldn't have any problems with the installation. It was very quick and painless. I think you might have to restart your PC, but very, very, very straightforward. This isn't really a software that goes in your DAW, but it is bundled in the installation files when you do install the drivers for whatever piece of thing you are buying from Wes Audio. This is the GCON control. It's the Wes Audio control management software. Allows you to do things like update the firmware, update the software, configure settings and stuff like that. If you're doing a more complex Titan setup, this stuff is probably going to be a little bit more involved in your workflow. I've probably used this 3 times in the past year, and they were just all for firmware updates. You just click on the upgrade and you click start, and it'll do its thing, locate the unit and upgrade the firmware. Config does the same thing basically. It just gives you a couple extra things, and the settings here breaks down like your static IP for networking. If you're using any of their other products that use networking or routing or USB controllers, like it would all be pretty much included in this little bit of software, I'm assuming. Again, I don't use a Titan rack, so I don't know for sure, but the only thing I've ever used here is the upgrader for the firmware and various upgrades for this system as well. Nothing else. So I don't want to spend too much time here. You see what it is and what it looks like, and just so you have an idea of what you're getting yourself into. So once all the software is done and installed, you're just good to go. Open up your DAW and go ahead and launch the Wes Audio plugin like you would do to any plugin. The Wes Audio plugin is a plugin. So whether it be a stock plugin or something you purchased, outright, it is a plugin. So you just launch it in your DAW, and we're going to go ahead and click the Wes Audio. We'll do mono for this demo, for just the software explanation point, and boom, it's launched. So on the bottom here, it says click to connect. I'm going to choose my left input just because it's selected, and we are now connected. So as you can see down here on the physical hardware, making sure it's in frame, and that is the USB cable that is connected. So that is it. The connection has been made. It will not connect if you do not have the USB cable in. So once that USB cable is in and you launch the plugin and choose connect, you are good to go. There's nothing else you need to do on the connection side of things. And now the software on the screen here will control the hardware down below here, and the hardware down below here will control the plugin and software that you have on the screen. It's super awesome. I'm going to show you how that works. My hands, first one is going on the mouse. I'm going to adjust, like we'll do, let's say this band up here, actually do a lower one here. We'll do the dB band for the lowest band, so you can see the change in it. And now we can mess with the frequency band, the low frequency, and you'll see here how it's changing in the hardware below. And I'll even do a vice versa. So now my hands again right here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually I'll change the output so you can see the output changing right here in the plugin. It's changing the curve. It does. I'll go ahead and let's go ahead and do something like we'll A/B it, between the two. Everything is selectable on this, so you have full control from whether you want to use the hardware or the plugin. It's really nice if you have your stuff on the other side of your studio, and underneath something, or in a rack or a cart behind you, in another room even. Super convenient to just be able to control everything from a hardware perspective, right here with a plugin, and have that responsiveness, have everything controllable right in front of you. It's the ease of access that it brings into your life. It completely changes your workflow. I cannot stress that enough, how crazy smooth my workflow has become since I've added just these little things. It really is. It's like it's just having another plugin that you would use for whatever piece of gear you need, except it's the real deal. It's not an emulation. It's not a clone. It's not something that was coded in a laboratory somewhere. It is the physical hardware. You were getting an analog unit, which I love. So a little bit more into this, and with the control between the two units, this thing is super in depth and can do a lot of really crazy stuff, including automation. So I'm going to show you right now how this works, but basically each one of these knobs is super sensitive, but it's also super sturdy. The knobs themselves feel amazing, but they're super like lush and princessy, very beautiful and airy. Like I can't describe it, you just have to touch it, but they're very, very sturdy knobs. They feel amazing, almost like a knob on like a recessed Les Paul, where you've got this super grippy turn to it, but it's very sensitive, and it's a really good feeling knob. I really love the knobs on these units. I think they're top notch. You know me, I'm like super weird with knobs, but these knobs are very, very solid. And not only are they very solid, but they're very, very sensitive with their encoders. So each one of these knobs is actually a digital encoder. So if you see my hand, touching here, they like light up with just the briefest of touches. I mean, it's super, and I just activated it. You could actually see it as it's happening. As I turn the knob, it is automating. And I will go ahead and change this top one too, so you can see the automation happening in real time. Again, I don't use this, but I guess it would be cool, like if I actually play the song and I need to go ahead and make a quick change to, I want to go ahead and boost the mids or something really quick during a part of the song, or automate like a scoop for a lo-fi part or something. You can actually do this in real time, and it is super cool, but it's just not something I use. It is a very cool feature, and I suspect you can use these things if you were, more like having several of these units and you wanted to just basically condense your workflow. I can definitely see it being something that I would probably more likely use, but I'm very old school in the sense that I like a mouse and keyboard. So this wasn't a selling feature to me, but it is there if you want it, and it is certainly very, very cool. Going into multiple units, again, there is a single USB cable that is hooked up to the Wes Audio Hyperion. There is none that is currently in my GCON. But if I wanted to go ahead and throw the Wes Audio GCON on here as well, and I click connect, there's no units available because there's not a USB cable plugged in. It is one cable per unit. So if I wanted to use both units simultaneously in my DAW, I would need two USB cables, one for each unit, and I would have the full control. Now, if I had a third unit, I would need a third USB cable, and a fourth unit, I would need a fourth USB cable. I only have the two units, so for me, the one cable, I can just simply unplug and plug it into the GCON, and you'll see here in just a second that once it connects to my USB card on my PC, you'll see it, and now I'm on the GCON again, and then vice versa. I could just switch it really quickly, but if you're looking for more of a stationary kind of sit and park and go full control, you would need multiple USB cables. Or Wes Audio has their flagship chassis, their 500 series power supply. It's the Titan, and it has one USB cable in the back of the 500 series rack, and it controls up to 10 units. So you can have the entire basic line of Wes Audio 500 series modules, and you will not have to worry about different USB cables or running out of spots on your computer or needing to buy a hub to cover all your ground. If you were going to go with, I would say, 3 or 4 units, I would probably go ahead. I know I would, if I had 4 units, I would absolutely cave and buy the Titan, because it would just make everything so much more workflowy and ease of access, and have less cables. You probably have a million cables behind your desk. Why add a million more? There's no need for it. So with that being said, the single USB cable, if you only have one and you're switching between two units like me, I made it work for a year. I'm still making it work. I'm going to continue to make it work into the future, and eventually, if I buy more units, I will more than likely go ahead and purchase a Titan rack.
And while every step I take feels like I'm walking on the mistakes that you made, but it'll never change the way your lips make my name. And while every step I take feels like I'm walking on the mistakes that you made, but it'll never change the way your lips make my name. And while every step I take feels like I'm walking on the mistakes that you made, but it'll never change the way your lips make my name. And while every step I take feels like I'm walking on the mistakes that you made, but it'll never change the way your lips make my name.
I can be your ghost, loving you the most, following you everywhere. I feel it in my bones whenever you get close, in the most familiar ways. Maybe not today, I know you'll be okay, and love again, my dear. The place you called your home was always in my arms, and forever it'll stay. I can be your ghost, loving you the most, following you everywhere. I feel it in my bones whenever you get close, in the most familiar ways. Maybe not today, I know you'll be okay, and love again, my dear. The place you called your home was always in my arms, and forever it'll stay. I can be your ghost, loving you the most, following you everywhere. I feel it in my bones whenever you get close, in the most familiar ways. Maybe not today, I know you'll be okay, and love again, my dear. The place you called your home was always in my arms, and forever it'll stay.
So as you see right here, it's set for Midside. I wanted to kind of touch base a little bit on the Midside processing that this EQ can do. Obviously, you saw it in stereo. You could use it in dual mono. You could use it individually on 2 different tracks, and each track will process separately, which is really, really cool. For the demo like this, you know, it's a left and a right track to make a stereo image. I just use stereo, but it's essentially the same thing when you're using mono. You can split it left, split it right, or just dual mono, how dual mono is intended. But Midside offers a unique creative tool. So I'm going to go ahead and shut up and just roll. And you can really hear the difference between the EQ curves on each track, but also the blend that doesn't make it seem so far out. Definitely a cool tool to utilize and really have. Again, I don't really use it a whole lot, but you can use it, get creative, and, you know, bring out some filtering in a song where, you know, you want the listener to experience some crazy stereo imaging. As well, you can probably use it to make things fuller and more sort of wholesome and rounded. Again, like I don't really use it. Sometimes I do left, center, right when I'm doing guitars and stuff like that, but it's nothing like Midside, and that's a whole different beast that I never really got around to messing with fully. But the fact that this has this feature and you could use it, super cool. And I'll just show you another tidbit here. So it's engaged. It's bypassed now. You go ahead and make some pretty extreme boosts and cuts here on the right side, and then keep the left side relatively neutral. I'll show you what happens. So if I boost the left side and keep the right in this wacky set of boosts, there's a big difference here with dual mono. You can hear that shift. But yeah, totally creative and interesting, a really cool thing to utilize and get creative with and mess around with. Like I said, I don't really use it, but it's really awesome to have another palette of colors and options on your wheel to do audio engineering and creative things with. So I definitely think this is a cool thing to have, and it is a cool selling point for people who utilize this kind of mixing and mastering. So some final things to talk about with this unit and some sort of last minute impressions. Really, the one thing that is going to be the biggest factor is going to be price for a lot of people. The Hyperion comes in at $1,400. That is a lot of money for a 500 series unit. It's a lot of money for someone just starting out. I've seen a lot of people kind of build their way up, buy a couple $100 units to $300, hang on for them for a few months to a year, maybe buy a $300 or $400 product, same thing, and work their way up. I'm and have always been about buying not always the best of the best, but right before the best of the best, something that'll have some sort of investment value. It's something that'll hold its value, and you could potentially have other people wanting while you own it. Things like Neve products, they never lose their value. You can have a Neve product for 10 years and it's gonna, if anything, go up in price, not go down. So I like to kind of think with that mentality. So $1,400, you are getting a ton of a product. You are getting a great sounding, great looking, very, very reliable unit that's built like a tank. I mean, this thing is just, it's gorgeous. You have all this weight in this unit. This thing probably weighs about a pound. It's got a heavy chassis, and it's built to last. And not only that, you're really getting a product that sounds amazing. And if you compare that $1,400 to other EQs on the market, if you split it down the middle at two separate mono EQs, $700 an EQ is about that average price where you're getting, I don't want to say an average unit because there's a lot of really good EQs in that $500 to $700 price range. But you're getting the Midside processing, you're getting the stereo pair, you're getting the dual mono pair, you're getting the recalling feature, you're getting the preset feature, you're getting the full control, you're getting a lot of product for that $1,400, and it's going to completely change your workflow. So, some final thoughts: if you have the money to save or spend on an EQ that's in the $1,000-ish price range, and you could swing a little more or budget a little more to get this, I would highly recommend getting it as your EQ. It works great for mixing, it works great for production and tracking, it works great for mastering. It is just an awesome sounding EQ. Like I've said previous times, I'm not sure if I said it in this video, but I've said it to my friends and clients who have asked me about it. It's basically Fab Filter in a hardware unit. It's analog Fab Filter. To me, that's how I reference it a lot of the times, because it's so convenient and so easy to use, but with sounds that are larger than life. And for that selling point, for me, that was enough. Adding all the other features just made it a no-brainer. So if you've got the money to spend and you are looking for a serious EQ that is going to be a powerhouse and a sort of Swiss Army knife on everything that you use it on, definitely consider the Hyperion. And if you found this video at all helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let the YouTube algorithm do its thing. And as always, thanks again for watching.